Hi, I'm Hector Garcia. I'm a CPA and an advanced QuickBooks Pro advisor. And I want to tell you about this app that I started using called Excel Transactions Importer and Deleter. And it's by a company called SAASANT, SAASANT. And what this app does, it allows me to import transactions that are already in Excel into QuickBooks Online instead of me entering transactions manually. The app itself also allows me to export data from QuickBooks Online into some Excel file or CSV file, and it also allows you to delete certain transactions. So I'm in a QuickBooks Online file now that I'm going to use to show you a demo of the app. And I went to apps.com or apps.intuit.com/Excel transactions, and I'm going to put the link of the app below in the description so you can click on it and go straight into this page. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a free trial and show you how it imports data. So I'm going to click on Get App Now. Then I'm going to select the company that I'm going to connect this with. So I'm going to select my company file that I want to connect or integrate this app with. And then click on Confirm. Then it's going to ask you one more time, are you sure you want to connect this app? It gives you the name of my QuickBooks Online file here that I want to connect with. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on Connect. So once the free trial is created, it's going to say that you have 200 transactions in the demo account. And then once you subscribe, and we'll talk about the pricing in a second, you'll be able to use it with unlimited access. So for now, I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to show you exactly how this works. So this is what the app looks like. And depending on when you pull this video, you may be seeing this app a little bit upgraded, maybe some facelift. But as of the time I'm recording this video, this is exactly what the app looks like. Now, the only things to really pay attention to is on the left side of the screen, we have a dashboard button that kind of gives you a summary of everything that has happened. In this case, this is all sample reports, so really nothing has happened so far. There's a button that says New Import, which is the one that I use to then upload a file from Excel into this app, so then I can push it into QuickBooks Online. Then there's a delete, so I can delete certain transactions that are in the books at the moment. Then there's export, which just saves the information from QuickBooks into a CSV file or an Excel file. And then there's modify for you to update lists in batch. So I can we can deep dive into that maybe in some other video. But that's in a nutshell what you see. Now the most important application of this or task of this is this import feature. So let me zoom in a little bit so we can see a little bit better. And then I'm going to click on Browse File. So let me show you real quick what the file looks like. So I downloaded these transactions from the bank basically, and this is a spreadsheet of 152 credit card transactions. So instead of using maybe bank feeds or entering it by hand, I just want to push this into QuickBooks in one fell swoop using the import feature. So that's just so you know, contextually, that's the data that I'm going to import into QuickBooks. Now, when we deal with credit card statements, and I'm going to zoom this in a little bit so you can see a lot better. So when we deal with credit card statements, we need to split off the credits from the debits. And a lot of times, the banks don't give you that stuff pretty separate. So I'm just going to run a quick if formula here to show you what that would look like. And the app that I'm showing you can actually bring in debits and credits if it's a bank transaction, but if it's a credit card transaction, it needs you to split them off. So I'm just going to do a quick Excel formula where I say, if this number is less than 0, give me the negative version of this number or something like that. And then on the next formula, I'm going to say, if this number is more than 0, then give me the positive version of this number, and I'll close that. And basically, by doing this, you get a one column for all the debits and one column for all the credits. Now, the problem with this formulation, and let me just make sure that the font here is big enough for everybody to see really well. The problem with this formulation is we actually need these numbers to end up, instead of giving me a false, to be a blank. So I'm going to add here on the formula the false statement, which will be a blank, and the same thing here. I'll add the false statement to be a blank. And you kind of have to follow the if formula in order to replicate this. So by doing this, I get one column for all the payments. Let's call this payments. And one column for all the charges. So by doing this, I effectively separated my payments from my charges. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all this information and create a new tab and paste the values. I'm going to click paste special and paste the values. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete the amount because I don't need that anymore. And I'm just going to show here payments and charges as two different columns. So what I want to do, and let me expand these and make the font a little bigger as well. So what I essentially want to do is I want to only keep payments on one sheet and then charges on the other sheets. That's actually pretty simple. We'll select the entire data set here, click on data, filter, and then we'll click on any of these payments or charges and remove blanks. Okay, that will give me only the sort of the payments, or in this case the refunds. So I'm going to copy that, and let me just copy the entire spreadsheet here. Copy that and paste it into a new sheet. I'm going to paste values. So paste values. Okay. So that will give me my 4 columns related to credit card refunds or credit card payments. You just make the font a little bit bigger, make this as easy to read as possible. And then we'll do the same thing here. Let me go ahead and remove this filter and do the same thing on the charges. Get rid of the blanks. And once I filter out the blanks from these, I can do the same thing. Copy this entire data set, create a new sheet, paste as values, paste special as values. And this works the same on the Mac version or PC version of Excel. So make the font a little bit bigger so we can see a lot better. Let me just make this easier to read. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to get rid of this column that says payments from this tab because I don't need that. And then I have my date, which I can change the formatting again. So there's my date, my payee, my memo, and my charges. So I got one tab with that. And in the second tab, I got my date. Let me change the formatting. I got my date, payee, memo, and payment. So pretty much I went ahead and I split off into 2 different tabs, these 2 pieces of information. So at this point, I can just probably delete what's there now because I don't need that stuff. Delete the first 2 that I was playing with. And I got 2 sheets. So I got these for my, let's call these payments, and let's call the other one charges. Okay. So by splitting off the payments and charges, I can now import my credit card charges using this app. Now, hopefully in the future, they will give the functionality where you don't have to do all this and it will accept credit card statements. But for now, the purpose of this video is to kind of show you this trick. You can import credit card transactions super quick. So let me save this file, and we'll save this as our chase. Let me save it as an Excel file, and I'll save it right there on the desktop. And I can close this up. I don't need this anymore. Perfect. So now back in the app with Excel Transactions Importer, I'm going to click on Browse File, and I'm going to pick off that Excel file that I was working on. And that Excel file, remember, that contains 2 tabs, one for the charges and one for the payments. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Continue. Then it has 2 tabs, so I'm going to basically pick which is the one I'm going to work with. So I clicked on Payments. And then I'm going to click on credit card credits because that's the one that's related to payments. So I'm going to click on credit card credits. And then it's asking me, hey, do you want to map the columns to make sure they match up to the QuickBooks columns? So I'm just going to click on Less Map. Okay, and then here's my 4 columns from the spreadsheet. We have date, payee, memo, and payment. So let me open up that spreadsheet again just to give you a frame of reference here because that would be useful to see. So in the payments tab, these are my columns: date, payee, memo, and payment. So this is what it's telling me. It's telling me, these are the 4 columns in there. How do we map them? Okay, so these are my first columns here. So it's asking me, what is the QBO field? So let me just show you a quick example. if I were to create a credit card expense in QuickBooks, let me pull that up here in the QuickBooks Online file that I have. So let me go to expense. We would essentially want to map these fields. So I want this date to come in the payment date, of course. And then I want this payee to come in here where it says payee. And then I'm going to want the payment amount to come in, where is it? Here in the amount column somewhere. And then there's no information about the account. So that's something that we're going to have to figure out when we do the import. And there's a couple of tricks to that. So we'll discuss that in a second. And then the source account, we actually have to pick a source account that has to do with this. So let me just quickly create a credit card account. So I'm going to do it here sort of on the fly. So let me create a credit card called Chase 0082. And let's say that's the Chase card we're going to import to. So I'm just creating that on the fly. So we have that in our chart of accounts. And I'm going to go ahead and close the expense tab. So I just wanted to show you an example of what all that stuff meant. So under date, we're going to click on select QBO field. And then we're going to select the date. So we have to go into here and figure out, okay, where would this go? Like what would be the actual column in the credit card credit screen? So here somewhere we would have to find the date. So where is my date? Right here, payment date. So that was actually all the way in the bottom here, payment date. And then payee. So we're going to grab that from the payee column. So that's actually pretty straightforward. And then memo will match up the memo with, is there a memo column? Yeah, there it is, memo with memo. And then payments, which in this case in the spreadsheet is called payments. What would this be called in QuickBooks? This will be called amount. So we're going to go to, this one's a little bit tricky. So this would be expense amount. There you go, expense line amount. And then the trick is, well, what do we do with the expense category? And for the expense category, we're going to grab one of these things that say default empty column, and we're going to select the QBO field, which in this case is going to be expense account. And then we're going to give it a default value. So we're going to give it a default value, and we're going to type here, what is that category that we want to use? So my spreadsheet currently doesn't have categories. So I'm going to send it actually to sort of a generic category. Let's see if I have like an uncategorized, there you go, uncategorized expense. So I'm going to use this account, uncategorized expense, to send all my expenses to it. And then I'll change the categorization in QuickBooks. By the way, you could do the categorization in Excel if you wanted to. So technically, you could create a column here called category or something like that. And you can sit there and add your categories in Excel if that pleases you. It's up to you really what you want to do. So that's doesn't have to happen, but it is an option. But in this case, I want to send everything into uncategorized expense. So I'm going to click on import to QuickBooks. And then there's one more that says, what is the source bank account? So that's actually a good one. So here it says default empty column. I'm going to select QBO field, and then I'm going to click here. It says bank CC cash account. And then I'm also going to use a default value. And then I'm going to put there the account, which I think it was called Chase 0082. Then I'm going to click on import to QuickBooks, and I think it should work now. Once it's complete, it's going to say file import completed successfully, and then I can click on show results. And this is going to show me from within the app exactly how this stuff came about. What's really cool about this is I can click on any of these and it will send me straight to that transaction. So it actually adds a link in the software for each of the transactions. So I'm going to click on one of them so you can see it's going to send me now to QuickBooks Online to actually see the transaction itself. So we're going to wait for that to load, and we're actually going to see how that information came into QuickBooks. And there it is. Notice it actually created a new payee. It chose the source bank account. It chose the amount from the spreadsheet, and it brought in the category to uncategorized expense, which I actually told it to do that. So let me go ahead and close that. Let me go back to SAASANT, and then I'm going to click on new import. And then I'm going to import the other side. I'm going to import the charges now. So I'm going to click here where it says on processed. So I'm going to bring in the charges, and those I'm going to bring in as expenses. So I'm going to click on expenses. Because the first set was payment. So this is going to be the expenses. So same mapping. So I'm going to select date, scroll all the way down and select payment date. Then we have a payee, which that's already mapped. So it actually starts sort of detecting what's going on. And then charges, that's going to be expense amount. There we go, expense amount, expense line amount. And then we have to add our default account, which is our Bank CC cash account, which we said we would default value, and we'll put Chase 0082. And then we have one more, which is the expense category, which we're going to send now that to expense account. And we're going to default value to on categorize expense. And again, the reason why I'm defaulting on categorize expense is because I don't have the category in the spreadsheet. If I had the category on the spreadsheet, then I would just map it, and then it would just, assuming it's the same of the chart of accounts, it would just come in with no issues. So I'm going to go ahead and click on import to QuickBooks. I should have no errors at this point. And that's like 100 something transactions. So this could take a couple of minutes. And notice that, I do have a trial period. There's a maximum amount. So that's okay. I'll just hit okay and I'll import the 50 that are there. So this has to do with the trial, right? The trial will limit how many transactions you can bring. So that's okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on upload and then hit okay. So I just limit it to a few transactions. So I'm not limited by the demo account or the trial account. And that's, again, it's going to take maybe a minute. You just wait and see. You'll say file in progress and you wait until import is completed. Now, what's really cool is you don't have to stop. You can actually just do them in batch. So you can keep going and be importing and it all queues up. So that's one of the really awesome things about this app, that you don't have to just kind of wait for that to complete. But I like to wait, obviously, for the purposes of the video. So let me click on show results. And now we're going to get a list of all the transactions that have been imported. I'm going to go back into QuickBooks here. I'm going to go in the chart of accounts and I'm going to look for that Chase account here. And where is it? Right here. And then I'm going to click on view register just so we can see exactly what happened. So in the register, we're going to see the payments that we imported. So we imported a couple of payments. And then we're going to see all the expenditures that came in. And notice that all the vendors were created. So that's pretty amazing. Now, this is going to create a pretty lengthy vendor list. So we'll probably suggest that you clean up that vendor list in Excel before importing it. Now, the key question that people ask is, wait, everything is going to uncategorize, but that's going to be a problem. Fine. But if you are an accounting professional, you got this little awesome tool here called Accountant Tools. You can click on the briefcase and then you can click on reclassify transactions. And then we can click on Categorize Expense. We're going to see all our categories here. We can sort by name. And then we can do them in batch. So we can select, multiple of the same, click Account To, and then maybe Office Supplies, reclassify. So we can actually and look at all these patterns. So we can look at a couple of these, Account To, and let's say that's purchases, whatever it happens to be. Click on Reclassify. So we can use the combination of pushing the data into QuickBooks Online and then use a reclassify tool to then organize where that's going to go. In theory, you could export your chart of accounts from QuickBooks Online, paste it into Excel, and then pre-categorize these things in Excel. So when you push it, it goes into the right category. That's really up to you, depending on your importing style. I'm always experimenting different things that we can do in the process. So I find this to be just a really quick way to enter massive amounts of information into QuickBooks, and it's all auto-reconciling, because if I get the spreadsheet from the bank that's complete, once I hit reconcile, it should be pretty immediate. Now, let me go back into SAASANT and show you a couple of things that are just really interesting about this app. Here, there's a tab that says delete. If I click on delete, and I can actually choose whether I want to search transactions that I've imported or transactions that have already been sitting in the books. I'm going to go ahead and click on search and show you. So you can actually select any of the files, any of the transactions you have imported, and I can pick one in particular or two, whatever it happens to be. And then I can scroll down and click on delete. Pretty awesome. And there's a download button that will actually allow you to download an Excel spreadsheet of those specific transactions. That's also really neat if you want to sort of keep a history of what you uploaded. But I can pick any of these transactions I've already imported and delete them, or I can click here where it says QuickBooks Online Real Time, and I can actually delete anything that's in QuickBooks. So if I click on Invoice, and then I click on, let's say, anything that was created from 2016 till today, let's just put that and click on Search. It will give me it will give me a list of all the invoices that are already in QuickBooks Online, or whatever transaction type I picked. And I can pick any of the ones that are sitting there, whatever those invoices are. I can select all here in the top, or maybe select a few. Okay, and then I can scroll down and click on Delete, and click Delete, and it will massively in batch delete all 3 of those transactions. So this is one of the most impressive tools I have ever used in the history of QuickBooks Online. And when you combine it with some of these techniques that I'm showing you, and I'm just really hopeful to see what other really interesting things I can do with this app. So once again, let me go to apps.com and show you what the app is, and I'll talk about pricing. When I click here where it says browse by category and click data sync, and there it is, Excel transactions imported by SAASANT. That's why I call it SAASANT. And then there's a little tab that says pricing. So it's $10 a month for up to 1 QuickBooks file, but you can have up to 15 users importing data, which is awesome. And then there's also $30 a month for up to 30 QuickBooks files. So it'll cost you $1 a month per QuickBooks file if you're managing 30 companies that you're importing data from. So I actually think that to have import capabilities, and obviously I show you a really advanced piece of it, import capabilities, deleting capabilities, exporting capabilities for $10 a month or 30 for up to 30 companies, I think is great. So I'm endorsing this app, and I'm not getting paid for this by the developer. I'm endorsing it because it's a breath of fresh air to see an app that gives you so much for such a small investment, and it worked right off the bat. I pretty much cranked it up, started playing with it. It took me 5-10 minutes to figure it out, and it's just an awesome app. So, check it out in the app's website, and happy importing.